taxes, Tesla equals trouble. What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line for Sunday, March the 30th. And of course, we've got all kinds of crap going on. And I think the headline stuff is we are in a recession, which we've said all along. But the tariffs, I think, are no big deal. I am encouraging, I'm happy to see tariffs. I would rather see the country that do our own manufacturing. I'd rather take care of our own business. I think the rest is a bunch of shit. And I think that this goes back to the same theory where exporters want to see lower dollars. And again, I don't understand, if you're reducing the value of the dollar, it is reducing your purchasing power worldwide. Why would we want to do that versus exporting? You want to export and you don't like the tariffs, lower your prices. That's the same as lowering the dollar. Now, the dollar itself has dropped enough to overcome any tariffs that we would see. But I think that they are a great bargaining chip. I think they are valuable, and I think it will help put the rest of the world back in line and take us away from being one of the laughing stocks. Because again, as we've seen, now that we're ending the Department of Education, when we started this Department of Education, we were #1 in the world in education. Today, we're number 40. So again, I think that that's something that is pretty sharp. Jon Stewart, the famous lefty comedian, is blowing his mind as he learns that they took $42 billion in the Biden administration to hook up online or internet, high-speed internet, for places that didn't have it. And how many got set up with that $42 billion? 0 homes in 4 years. So another great thing that the Biden administration had done. Now, again, as I said to you before, you may like President Trump, you may not like President Trump, but at the end of the day, okay, no matter what, this is not going to be an easy path, as the markets are telling us, as the consumers are telling us, that the path, the damage that has been done, and I'm not going to just say over the last 4 years, let's say over the last 20 years, it doesn't matter. The damage that has been done to the overall economy, the debt that has been built, is going to continue, and it's going to take a lot of changes to get through this. So it's not going to be, well, we have a new president, let's flip a switch and make sure that everything's going to be great today. Okay. I do believe before President Trump gets out of office, the economy will be much stronger. I think America will be much stronger. And that's where I look at it from this. But we see a GDP forecast came out at a big negative. So once again, we're seeing problems. Now, again, is that related to the tariffs? Again, I don't believe it. I think it's bullshit. I think we look for excuses to see what these things are. But at the end of the day, consumer sentiment has hit its lowest level since 2022. Now, again, you're going to blame Trump for that? Okay. Remember, a lot of the data we get now is old data from before. It isn't going to switch that fast. And again, I'm not saying that President Trump is a miracle worker. I'm saying that we have a better shot, that the money that we're paying taxes on, the money that we're spending, has a better chance to get to the places that it's going to get to help us become stronger. So I think that a lot of things are showing, and of course we're now seeing in Pennsylvania where the municipalities are crying because their COVID funds finally drew up. I mean, again, do you realize how much money was stolen during the COVID, during the PPP programs, during the government, during the naming things that weren't COVID to get more money in the hospitals? So fortunately, they're drying up, and of course, I'm sure they'll hit their taxpayers with higher taxes. We're already seeing that in many states across the country. Of course, those are all left states. They are not happening in right states, because most right states aren't glomming and stealing tax money as the cartel. And of course, we continue to deal with these vaccines. Now, it's interesting, in Texas, they've given out more than 15,000 measles shots this year, and they now have more cases of measles than they had in all of 2024. Okay, so we're in the first quarter of 2025 with all our vaccines. We now have more cases in Texas of measles. I don't know what your take is on the Ukraine-Russia war. I don't know which, if you pick a side, but of course, Trump went to Zelensky to make the mineral deal, and Trump wants the money that we give them to be a loan, not a free gift of money. And of course, Zelensky says, well, no way, he rejects it. And of course, you know the uproar we're going to hear from the woke side of the aisle about how we should continue to feed it. Now, you got to ask yourself a question, okay? We have got some of the worst organizations in the country, in the world, and you when you want to end them, you see uproar. And where does the uproar come from? Okay, it comes mostly from the progressives, from the far right, or excuse me, the far left. I mean, you got to ask yourself. I mean, are they right? I don't think so. I think that we should be, as in America, we should be strong. We should be stronger than anybody else. We should be in control. And again, I think that, you know, when you look at the things that are happening, okay, finally, the U.S. aid is going to be shuttered after a court victory. So good for that. That's just a lot of money. And I don't know what you think about the Doge program, but I think that Elon Musk is doing a great job. Okay. I think we're finding that a lot of the debt we have has been money stolen, not money spent, and debt created. And again, I think when you look at, for example, the Federal Reserve, who owns the Federal Reserve? Do you know? It's owned by the banks. Okay, it's a private corporation, even though it says Federal Reserve. That name was put in place to give you the feel that it was a government agency. It is a banking agency. It is controlled by the banks. Okay, Jerome Powell works for the banks. So again, do you think that they actually have your best interest at heart? But they are nothing more than a cartel. They've been a cartel since they started, and they've been stealing money, or the creation of what they've done, which is why Ron Paul has always said, "End the Fed." And I believe that the Fed is worthless. I believe that it was one of the greatest American con jobs that was created at Jekyll Island. And if you go back in history, the central banks started in England in the 1600s. They've been stealing from the beginning. Again, when you continue to not let the free markets trade, when you continue to try to play with the interest rate market, because I guarantee you, if the Fed would leave interest rates alone to trade in a free market, they'd be higher than they are now. Okay. And that just tells you that if you look at supply versus demand, there is a bigger demand for money. And of course, we have debt resetting, which what do you think that's going to do to the economy over time when you have especially a moronic Federal Reserve that has no clue what they're saying? And of course, now we're back into the transitory inflation words. Are you fucking kidding me? This inflation isn't transitory. They've been talking transitory for 10 years. So I think we see some front running on the tariffs, some extra imports coming in. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you really want to have all this shit imported? Half of it doesn't work. I mean, you know, you want to talk about built-in obsolescence. We didn't build in obsolescence, we built in broke. Okay. So even though you're paying less for the initial purchase, how many times do you have to replace that same item over time because it's made like shit? Again, I'm a big fan of Build It in America. I'm willing to pay more for products, okay, and have them built here. That creates jobs. That creates people more money for the American citizens. Maybe at some point we can actually fix the infrastructure, because we've certainly paid billions of dollars and billions of dollars to fix it. And yet, in my lifetime, every presidential candidate has offered it, and so far zero have fixed it. Okay, but the Fed created this inflationary dilemma. What are they going to do with it now? Okay, they let it get out of control. You know, there's a in economics, you should let the weak fail and let somebody come in to replace them. That is really the way that it should be, but we don't see it that way. We say that the banks, for example, are too big to fail. I say, fuck the banks. If you're not strong enough, if you're stealing, if you're making loans you shouldn't be making, then you should go out of business. The only people that should be guaranteed their money and their survival is the depositors into those banks, not the banks themselves. What kind of business model is that when you can lend, overlend, get over leveraged, go broke, and get bailed out by the taxpayer? Doesn't make a real good sense to me. And disposable income supposedly is now higher than spending. Again, I don't know that I believe that. I think you're trying to see a lot more Americans try to save. I think we'll talk about this in our commentary when we talked about the looming recession and how do we know we're in a recession, because I certainly believe that we are in a recession. Okay, and I think that there is a lot of issues out there and a lot of problems, and I cannot believe that still the left continues to try to blame Trump for everything. They continue to push, they continue to go after him, instead of trying to build this country and rebuild it, okay, and make America strong again, okay, or make America great again. They continue to fight at every step of the way. And the Tesla idiots that are starting Tesla cars on fire, the good news is, for the most part, there's a bigger portion of the population that are on the left. So they're actually burning their own cars and keying and scratching their own cars. So good for them, because certainly they are morons for starting fires in Tesla cars like it does a lot. But of course, we know they're going to say, well, those are peaceful protests. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, top of Horwitz. It is Sunday, March the 30th. It is NCAA time, and it's been a pretty good tournament, but we're going to give you our picks later. In the meantime, let us take a break, and we'll be back with our market update right after the break. What's up, kids? Everything's good. I hope you're having a terrific time, and I hope things are well. It's been a tough, challenging market, but we do have sponsors to talk about, and of course, we do want you to, again, I'm not telling you to use them. I'm telling you to check them out. They are brokerage partners. I have many other brokers, just for full disclosure. But again, Capital Trading Group for futures and commodities, they do a great job. They're on your side. They've got great customer service. I encourage you to check them out. Their website's on the bottom or on the side. TRADIER Brokerage saves me over $100,000 a year in commission. Okay, they're $10 a month flat. I encourage you to check them out. They also work with all of our automation. Okay, they are a big part of what we do, because we can offer it through TRADIER at a flat rate of $10 a month. So check it out. And of course, ITM Trading, which is my gold and silver, personal gold and silver provider, who I buy physical metals from. Check them out. And of course, SpookyExpress.com. If you're looking to place a bet offshore, there's a place to check out. And of course, our high school program. Again, we're trying to educate people. And I had a pretty good conversation with somebody on Friday about doing something for a big chunk of people and using the high school program to help educate. So I'm really excited about that. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line and, of course, our market report. Welcome back. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Todd Bubba Horwitz. It is Sunday, March the 31st. And, of course, markets got blitzed, along with part of our portfolios got blitzed as well. We're pretty predominantly long, and we just can't seem to get a rally. But I think the biggest concern, if you're a trader, is the dramatic fall off on volume. I mean, you would have thought, for example, on Friday, you would have seen massive volume on that big sell-off, yet the volume wasn't even the biggest volume day of the week. And I think that that's something that, again, that just shows you the lack of participation, the lack of activity in the market, the lack of people trying to trade it. So we'll see what happens. The next thing that happens, if things continue like this, is the panic. If the selling continues, we'll see panic. So again, it's a little bit concerning, but my biggest concern from a trader is the lack of price action. I have no other concerns, because all of my stuff is hedged, and actually I bought a ton of stock last week, and will continue to do so. Again, through my hedging program, which we do run through TRADIER. In the meantime, we are still long all four major indices. They were down. The S&P cash was down about 83 points last week. Looked like we're going to have a good week, and then, of course, the bottom fell out. But if we look at the rest, the dollar is pretty flat, but headed a little bit lower. If we traded it, which we don't, we'd be long. We are short the euro currency, which had a down week. We are short the notes and the bonds, which means that we believe interest rates are going higher, but that's really just based on the chart. You had a little bit of a bounce after being down all week there, pretty much flat for the week. Bitcoin continues to hover around that 85,000. We're still long. Gold continues to explode, dramatically overbought. Now, again, what does it mean? Obviously, it doesn't mean anything because it keeps going higher. Now, there will be a sell-off at some point, but I have a position on that's getting smoked, but we're still short gold. Okay, we have no position in silver, but silver looks like it's trying to break out now again to the next level. It's trying to get back over 35. Platinum just churning between 960 and 1,000. Now we don't trade it, but because it's not liquid enough for all of us, but it is something to look at. Copper tried to explode, but did come down quite a bit towards the end of the week. The grain markets are just struggling. Now there's a report tomorrow. I believe it is tomorrow. And again, I don't think it means anything. I think that, again, the lack of interest, the lack of participation continues to tell us that there's really not much to do there. If I were going to do anything in the grain market, we have no position, but if I were going to do anything in the grain market, I would be a buyer. Again, I see the risk reward. My concern here is the lack of movement. In the meats, cattle continues to push higher. I'm looking for a spot to sell it. I haven't done so yet. Hogs continue to work lower. I'm looking for a spot to buy them. I haven't found a spot to do that yet. Nat gas, again, came off a little bit of the bottom, a little bit of dead cat bounce on Friday. I'd like to be a seller. We are still short. And crude oil, as I said here and in many places, I'd be a seller at 40. And at 70. And I was, and it is going lower. I think that before year's end, we see crude in the low 50s, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, again, it was a challenging week. It's a very tough trade because of the lack of action, but I think that there'll be some more. We have to break one way or the other. I think the true action is we need a rip your face off rally to sell into, but we'll see how it plays out. Markets are tough. Earnings are season starting in a week or 2 weeks. So there's a lot of things going on that could help set this thing up, but we need to get more price action and more volume before we get anything else. And I think that's the way I see it. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line. Let us step out for our final break and come back with my commentary and, of course, basketball. Well, kids, again, I'm not going to go through the whole speech. Remember our sponsors are on the bottom. Capital Trading Group, TRADIER Brokerage, ITM Trading, Spooky Express, our high school program, and something new that we're going to be able to help and have an effect on a lot of lives. So I'm excited about that. We'll give you that when we can disclose it. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line and my commentary. Welcome back. It is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, March the 30th, excuse me. And of course, every week I give you a little commentary. And, I've been saying that we've been in a recession for an extended period of time. And I think we are. I think it's getting worse. Okay. And I don't think that people are prepared for the recession. And I think one of the things you have to look at, okay, is one of the reasons there's a lack of participation in markets is because I believe that there's a massive amount of debt, credit card debt out there. So people don't have money to invest. They don't have money for their IRAs. I think many people have pulled off from their 401ks, which that money always goes into the market. I think the standard of living is really gotten ugly for many. I think that too many people are living not even paycheck to paycheck, but paycheck to, I'm out of money. I got to get the next paycheck because I got more bills. So I think what you're seeing with the middle class and the consumer is mounting debt with no real hope to get out. I think that's why you're seeing so many more homeless. But I think if we would finally recognize that we are actually in a recession, we got to actually do something about it. And I think that the concern here that it's going to get worse before it gets better, because if the administration is going to make the changes necessary to really get progress, we have to suffer a little pain. You just can't turn a big tanker around, otherwise it tips over. So again, it's very tough, and it's also very tough when you're dealing with a cartel such as the Federal Reserve that is absolutely clueless about what's going on, and they are responsible for this recession and the massive inflation as much as anybody else. And that's the way I see it right here on Bubba's Bottom Line. In the meantime, we've got 2 games today, and we like Houston against Tennessee, and Auburn against Michigan State. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for being a part of it. We'll see you back here tomorrow with Bubba's Daily Update. Adios.